Hey everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, back once again with another exciting news update. We have news on WWE's potential plans for the WrestleMania 35 main event, or should I say main events, because there isn't just one set in stone. They've kept their options a little bit open. We'll get right into that in just a few seconds. Also some news on SmackDown and whether that show may have to change slightly next year when this new Fox deal comes in, may have to change its style or its tone to better fit the new deal. We'll find out about that as well in just a second. And finally as well, a WWE Hall of Famer has said that he would return to the ring in a heartbeat if WWE asked him to. And from his recent posts on social media, he's looking real jacked as the wrestlers say. Looking swole. All kinds of gains. All kinds. But first of all, let's take a look at that WrestleMania 35 speculation from Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. He claims that the word on the street backstage in WWE is that the main event of WrestleMania 35 is still penciled in, lightly penciled in, as Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey. But that is not set in stone, and that's kind of because of Charlotte's situation at the moment. Now, Charlotte is currently, of course, locked in that feud with Becky Lynch over the SmackDown Women's Championship, her former best friend. A feud that has attracted both praise for the performances of the two in the ring, but also criticism in terms of booking, because people seem to think that Becky would be the more natural babyface, even though she's been doing a wonderful job on the mic as a heel, and Charlotte, as a Flair, keyword being Flair, would be a more natural villainess in the piece. Now, I'm inclined to agree, but at the same time, it is getting harder to sort of see Becky as a babyface because she's been such a good heel. But this isn't about Becky, this is about Charlotte and her momentum heading into next April. Apparently, if she suffers quite a hit to her popularity as a result of this feud, and fans sort of turn against her because she's the babyface that we don't want to cheer for, then maybe the main event will be knocked down a little bit and she might not end up facing Ronda Rousey in the final stages of the show. But if that does happen, and I hope it doesn't, because honestly, I think it would be very cool and important and significant to see an all-women's main event of WrestleMania. But if that were to happen, who does WWE have on standby to fill in? Apparently, again, according to Meltzer, that man is the big dog, Roman Reigns. There was no word on a potential opponent for Reigns. Apparently, once again, options are just being kept open at this stage in time, which I think is a good thing. I think it's always good to be pragmatic and flexible in booking, but at the same time, I do have to question this decision, because if you're going to take Charlotte Flair out of the main event because the fans may have turned against her, then how can you really justify putting Roman Reigns in, a man who is already one of the most divisive figures ever in the history of WWE? Also, it's kind of strange because Roman Reigns has, let's not forget, headlined every single WrestleMania since 31. He wrestled Lesnar at 31, Triple H at 32, Undertaker at 33, and Lesnar again at 34. So if he were to headline, a fifth Mania in a row, which is quite excessive, would that lead to an even bigger backlash or maybe a sense of apathy amongst the fans when we could have the most sort of fresh and exciting main event in terms of it being a women's division match, as opposed to the sort of same old thing that we've seen for the past few years. Moving on now to that news about SmackDown Live. Again, we're sticking with the Wrestling Observer newsletter here, because it's been speculated that SmackDown may have to change its tone to fit in with the new network when the Fox deal comes in next year, because apparently Fox want to include WWE as part of its kind of sports package, and in doing so, they apparently want WWE's product to become more sports orientated, more legitimate, so that there can be cross promotion on various different shows involving different sports and that sort of thing. But the feeling at the moment is that Vince McMahon presents wrestling in a more of a comedic sort of way, a less serious sort of way, maybe a bit more of a cartoonish way, as we've come to expect, I guess, more in the PG era. Now, if WWE were to shift SmackDown to a more sports orientated style, my big question would be, is that going to affect Raw as well, or will Raw be a bit more wacky and SmackDown be a bit more serious? It's hard to tell. Also, will this lead, if this is true, will this lead to a big sort of shift in the trend of pro wrestling? We've already seen more serious wrestling on the indies and also in New Japan, where it is and has been for many years treated as more of a sport than entertainment. And will WWE follow suit, I guess, is what I'm asking here? Or will they just sort of do things the way they continue to, but just put more sports-orientated superstars onto SmackDown to comply with Fox? So you might see, we've already got AJ Styles on there, who's a very sort of serious babyface champion, really good competitor in the ring, that sort of thing. Could we see Matt Riddle be called up and shifted over to SmackDown to give them that legitimate MMA edge? And maybe even Ronda Rousey, although, you kind of assume that she's going to stay with the flagship show because she's just such a big name. But I don't know, this new deal could change everything. It could change the makeup of the rosters, and it could also, as we've mentioned, change the overall tone of the product itself. And finally, a WWE Hall of Famer has told Sports Illustrated's Justin Barrasso that he would return to the ring in a heartbeat if WWE asked, and that man is none other than the 5-time WCW champion himself, Booker T. Now, while talking to Sports Illustrated, Booker did admit that he would be ready to jump back into the ring in a heartbeat, and I honestly think that makes a lot of sense given the fact that if you've seen his social media posts recently, he's been hitting the gym hard, he's been maintaining an amazing figure, especially for a man his age, and looks like he could still get in the ring and be a legitimate and believable badass. Now, at the same time, I'm now wondering if this is all gearing up to actually get him back into a match. We've seen so many guys come out of retirement recently, or out of semi-retirement, I guess, especially with the whole build-up to Crown Jewel, whether or not that show happens, because of course, Shawn Michaels was or is going to come out of retirement for that match against 3 older guys as well. He's going to team with Triple H against Kane and The Undertaker. Now, Booker T looks in amazing shape, and I would definitely want to see him. I think I'd want to see how he could do back in the ring once again. It's not actually been that long since he last wrestled outside of WWE in his sort of training promotion alongside his old Harlem Heat tag team partner, Stevie Ray. That was in 2015, I believe. So it's not as if he's had a lot of time to build up like a decade's worth of ring rust in a sort of Goldberg fashion, and Goldberg obviously came back and kind of just killed it anyway. So ring rust's more of a personal thing, I guess. But Booker seems like the sort of guy who wouldn't be affected too much by ring rust. He's got so much experience. He had so much natural athleticism, which I guess he's still going to have some degree of. And I'm starting to wonder whether this is actually leading up to his return at some point. Let us know what you think of all of these news stories in the comment section down below, and thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. You can follow me on Twitter if you want to Jack the Jobber. You can follow all of us at Cultaholic, and if you enjoy what we do, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Cultaholic. And never forget, of course, if you haven't already, to hit subscribe and to join us.